My friends, the United States Navy has just sent another aircraft carrier to Iran's doorstep, proving that the war in the Middle East is far from over. And Donald Trump, who has already taken the reins of American geopolitical policy, has just shown who is in charge and who has absolute control of this game board. What you're about to hear now is not diplomatic rhetoric, it's the sound of steel, jet fuel, and the desperation of a terrorist regime that has realized Western patience has reached its limit. The illusion that Iran would dictate the rules in the Strait of Hormuz has been shattered, and the American war machine is positioned to turn any threat into ashes. And to understand the scale of this checkmate, we first need to look at the veteran machine that has operated as the true steel wall in this theater of operations. And I'm talking about the USS Abraham Lincoln. Pay attention, because we're not dealing with a simple warship. We're talking about sovereign floating territory. A monstrosity of American engineering, over 333 meters long and with a brutal displacement of 100,000 tons of pure military metal. Imagine a city powered by 2 nuclear reactors, carrying a population of over 5,000 crew members, including sailors and the elite air squadron, operating under maximum combat stress for more than 260 consecutive days at sea. The roar of the turbines and the frantic, lethal pace of its deck never stopped for even a second, carrying out more than 10,000 flight missions. It doesn't travel alone. This beast is the heart of a complete battle group, escorted by cruisers and destroyers, armed to the teeth, forming an impenetrable dome of destruction that suffocates any reaction from enemies in the region. Look at the level of firepower resting on the water. In addition to the Sea Sparrow interceptor missiles and the Phalanx point defense cannons, which spit out thousands of rounds per minute to shred any aerial threat that dares to come close. The real impact of this operation lies in an arsenal that has already been unloaded. 1.5 million pounds of ammunition have already been fired and exploded during this. That's the equivalent of 4 fully loaded Boeing 747 commercial airplanes. That means almost 680,000 kilos of high explosives tearing through the sky and systematically and mercilessly pulverizing the terrorist infrastructure. And this is something you won't see on Luciano Huck's show, proportionally speaking. So what did Iranian propaganda try to do in the face of this overwhelming force? They tried to win by shouting, spreading pathetic lies in the media that the American crew was having a psychological breakdown and mutinying. The response from the United States Central Command didn't come with political speeches or statements of condemnation, but with pure and destructive mathematics. They revealed that 84.4% of the crew on board had just signed up to rejoin the American Navy. My friends, you can't get 4 out of 5 sailors to want to stay in the war if the structure is failing or if morale is broken. And that's not a sign of collapse. It's the portrait of a brotherhood of steel that believes in the mission and knows exactly the weight of the uniform they wear. The Iranian lie melted on the hot asphalt of reality. And that's why Washington made it clear that the Western narrative and control of the seas will never be hijacked by the Ayatollahs. And as if public humiliation and a rain of 600,000 kilos of explosives weren't enough, the United States Navy did what Americans do best: they doubled down. The deployment of the second aircraft carrier is not just a logistical rotation or a routine change of guard. It's an undeniable show of force. It's the Pentagon rubbing it in the Ayatollahs' faces that the United States can keep 2 nuclear giants in Iran's backyard for as long as they see fit. The giant joining this task force is the USS George Washington, accompanied by a cruiser and a destroyer. It's the only American aircraft carrier that was permanently deployed in Japan. And now it's crossing the Strait of Malacca, heading toward the Indian Ocean. It's not coming just to say hello. It brings the ultimate greeting in the form of 5th generation technology. And this is where the game changes. The USS George Washington is a formidable leviathan of 104,000 tons of military steel and 333 meters in length. The takeaway from those dimensions is simple. It's a true floating and self-sufficient military base, powered by 2 nuclear reactors that give it virtually unlimited endurance. It doesn't need to dock to refuel its engines, it simply moves forward and crushes. It houses a population of more than 5,000 crew members, including frontline sailors, nuclear engineers, and the elite Naval Aviation Squadron. This machine is operated by human machinery trained to master chaos. The destructive capability that this fortress carries far surpasses the military power of dozens of entire countries combined. This ship has the capacity to accommodate more than 80 high-performance aircraft lined up on its deck, ready to be launched by steam catapults and turn night into day. But what chills the blood of the Iranian High Command is not just the tonnage or the colossal size of this beast. It's the arsenal of tomorrow that it brings to the theater of operations. And pay attention, what rests on the flight deck of the USS George Washington is the deadliest and most advanced there is in aeronautical engineering. The main highlight is the F-35C Lightning II, the variant developed specifically to withstand the brutal impact of landing and taking off from aircraft carriers. It is the only 5th generation fighter on the face of the Earth with this capability. But the F-35C is not just a fast plane. It is a supersonic interception platform with a reduced radar signature. More than that, it is a flying computer. Thanks to its distributed aperture system and sensor fusion, the pilot doesn't see 6 different problems on the screen. He sees an integrated tactical map directly on his helmet display, knowing exactly where enemy radars, drones, and anti-aircraft batteries are, even before the Iranians know he's there. And he doesn't just fight. He sees the enemy's weakness and shares that intelligence with the rest of the fleet in real time. Every boat in this system is calibrated to protect trade routes and destroy any military capability of the Iranian regime in seconds. And along with the F-35Cs come the 4th generation fighter jets. The brutal FA-18 Super Hornets, the workhorses with twin engines and 10 hardpoints for heavy weaponry. But the real jewel of electronic warfare that comes with this package is the EA-18G Growler. The job of this machine isn't to drop bombs, it's to fry the enemy's electronic brain. The Growler carries jamming pods that send false signals and deafening noise to Iran's radar screens. Their mission is to act like electronic gaslighters, driving the enemy radar operator crazy, not knowing if the screen is showing a ghost, a system failure, or a missile 3 seconds away. The enemy operator starts to doubt his own equipment, like someone suffering psychological terror from a toxic ex-girlfriend. When the radar blinks and you die, the American fleet has already passed. My friends, if you think this topic is important and want more Brazilians to have access to it, support this video now. Send a super thanks down below or the information that's appearing on your screen. Let's boost our community. Now, look, the real technological revolution, the real game changer that will make the Iranian High Command lose sleep at night, doesn't carry missiles and doesn't have a pilot in the cockpit. It's the MQ-25 Stingray. We're talking about the autonomous carrier-based aerial refueling drone. Until now, the United States Navy used its own Super Hornet fighters, carrying extra fuel tanks to refuel other jets in flight, wasting up to 1/3 of the missions of its best attack aircraft. Just like flying gas stations, the MQ-25 completely changes the math of war. It has already proven capable of deploying its hose and refueling F-35Cs in mid-air. This is not just a concept, it's a tested and proven fact. This drone is programmed to take off, fly, refuel, and land on the aircraft carrier deck completely autonomously, operated by a controller in a secure room. The Stingray can carry almost 6,300 kilograms of fuel at a distance of over 900 kilometers from the fleet. And what is the practical and terrifying implication of that? It extends the deadly reach of the United States to penetrate even deeper into Iranian territory, allowing American fighter jets to strike strategic targets in the heart of Iran, without putting pilots at risk of running out of fuel or forcing the aircraft carrier to sail too close to the coast and enemy coastal batteries. It's the exponential increase in American lethality. And with technology advancing quickly, this robotic drone, which was expected to be deployed on a large scale in 2029, is already operating and changing the landscape today. The American steel wall at sea has just gained an impenetrable web of steel in the sky. And pay close attention to the cold mechanics of this conflict. War at sea does not forgive mistakes, and metal fatigue is just as real as human exhaustion. After nearly 300 days of non-stop operation, launching and recovering fighters every few minutes under the absolute stress of combat, the machine screams and the human body reaches its limit. It's the pure physics of war, my friends. The nuclear turbines, the steam catapults, and especially the crew all need thorough maintenance. And this is exactly where the so-called changing of the guard comes in, a rotation meticulously planned by the Pentagon. But look at the level of what we're witnessing. Removing a 100,000-ton floating military base from the battlefield would leave a fatal power vacuum, a gap that Iran or any other extremist group would exploit immediately. Any country in the world would have to retreat and abandon the theater of operations. But the United States doesn't leave a vacuum, they simply realign. A second nuclear Leviathan, which is the USS George Washington. They swap out the fleets in the middle of the ocean without losing a single millisecond of control over the airspace. The guard changes, but the targeting laser remains fixed on the Ayatollah's foreheads. Globo will never admit this on Fantástico. There is no other nation on the face of the earth today that has this military capability. None. China can produce warships in its shipyards with the same ease and speed as it prints paper. Beijing can boast 2 million active duty soldiers, saluting in military parades. But the Chinese Navy doesn't have the logistics, doesn't have the doctrine, and above all, it doesn't have real combat experience. To sustain the rotation of 2 aircraft carrier strike groups simultaneously on the other side of the planet, they can't switch from one wall to another without exposing their own rear. This ability to project lethal force continuously on the other side of the world can't be bought off the shelf and can't be copied through reverse engineering. It was forged by Americans with a lot of blood, steel, and fire over more than a century of relentless naval battles. This doctrine of global warfare and continuous power projection is imprinted in the naval DNA of every sailor, in the combat code of every fighter jet, and in the keel of every American aircraft carrier. The naval machine needs to return home to rest, but the steel wall of the West never sleeps. And if you think the problem was just Iran mumbling lies in the Strait of Hormuz, look at what's happening in Russia right now. Because we are not looking at isolated regional conflicts, we are witnessing the pieces on the global chessboard in a war of energy annihilation. In the early hours of this same week, air raid sirens wailed in the Leningrad region in Russia. Ukraine took the gloves off and launched dozens of drones. More than 50 were recorded, destroying facilities and setting fire to the vital oil port of Luga. And why does the port of Luga matter so much? Because that port exported about 700,000 barrels of oil per day last year. It's the same suffocating logic applied in the Persian Gulf. While the United States aircraft carrier fleet shuts down Iran's flow of money, Ukraine destroys the fuel arteries of Vladimir Putin's war machine. At the same time, in a clear sign of the tension plaguing Europe, NATO fighter jets stationed in Latvia went on high alert for rapid response. At 4 in the morning, they intercepted and shot down a Russian attack drone that had entered Allied airspace. They took down a slow, small kamikaze drone, like the infamous Rito models made in Russia or the Iranian Shahrid drones. With the precision of an advanced fighter, it's a demonstration of surgical aim and the lethal superiority of Western pilots. Russia tries to treat this as just another Thursday, denying that its drones violated NATO airspace. But the reality is that Russian Baltic oil terminals have already burned 6 times just this year. The two fronts are interconnected. The United States and its allies have understood that to neutralize aggressive regimes and sponsors of terror, you don't just attack the armies. You destroy the financial oxygen that keeps them on their feet. Now you're going to head to the comments and show the system that you've decoded the hidden rules of this conflict. Type the 2 keywords that sum up the verdict of our elite analysis today: changing of the guard and energy collapse. I repeat, changing of the guard and energy collapse. And I repeat, if this episode is important to you, support this video right now. My friends, with the return of the Americans, the doctrine of peace through strength, led by Trump's relentless stance, put the enemy axis in a trap they built themselves. In all corners of the earth, in Europe, the Middle East and Latin America, there, Iran is at the peak of self-strangulation. In the dead of night, the Revolutionary Guard tweeted to the world that no oil tanker passes through the Strait of Hormuz without Iran's permission. This is the most pathetic lie in modern geopolitics. And the truth is that about 59 commercial ships were redirected by the United States Navy to safely pass under American escort. The Strait of Hormuz is vital for Iran itself. They need the oil to flow to keep the country running. However, the naval blockade they tried to impose on the world backfired on them, squeezing the Iranian economy and causing a brutal loss of about $500 million per day. The Revolutionary Guard extorts its own people to maintain their luxury, and now they watch their revenue disappear because they decided to play pirates against the United States. Iran is so desperate that it constantly needs to create narratives of victory to contain the people's momentum. They no longer have an air force or navy capable of facing the West, and all they have left are kamikaze drones and ballistic missiles fired at civilian ships. The image of ghost Iranian ports, where ship pilots don't even touch a helm for almost a week. It stands in humiliating contrast to the dozens of F-18s and F-35s roaring non-stop on American decks. The Iranian military leadership is delusional while its own people realize the impotence of the state. My friends, is in the description, in the pinned comment and in the QR code that appears on your screen. Come to our backup channel called Blind a Sua Mente. Yes, Blind a Sua Mente. That's where we'll continue if we get deleted here. My friends, the infrastructure is ready. 2 of the deadliest aircraft carriers in human history are anchored in Iran's backyard, armed with stealth fighters, electronic warfare and refueling drones. The question hanging in the dense air of the Middle East is no longer whether there will be conflict, but who in the high command of Tehran will make the first misstep under the constant and relentless watch of the American F-35s. The board has already been set, and Washington's message was written in metal and fire. Military superiority will not be negotiated. Naivety costs nations. Ignorance exacts the price of your own freedom. Prepare your mind. Shielding your mind is strategic, and while the world sleeps under fabricated narratives, you can't afford to be caught off guard. That's why we built our exclusive platform. A true intelligence bunker completely free from censorship. Inside, you are not a mere spectator. You join more than 3,000 analysts who fund the truth here and pore over the map of what really happens behind the scenes of global power every day. We anticipate the move before the system reacts. Don't wait for the crisis to knock on your door to seek refuge. Point your phone's camera at the QR code that's on the screen now and access the link in the description and in the first pinned comment. Enter the bunker and take control of your own mind. And for those who stayed until now, I have a gift. A fantastic series that deals with this very geopolitical war. Yes, my friends. And for those asking the name of this series, Shimon, what's the name? Well, it's called Lioness and it's on Paramount Plus, okay? And you find tips like these on our channel with recommendations for series and movies. No woke culture, no whining, a curated selection so you don't waste any more time looking for something cool to watch. Okay, so check out our series and movies channel. The link is in the description, in the pinned comment and in the card that's showing up on your screen right now. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell and leave you a like on the video because it takes work to make. Now, shield your mind. Yes, shield your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.